Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on my YouTube channel. Welcome back to Workshop Quick Takes. Today I'm going to tackle exhaust work on this 2000 Jeep Cherokee. Now some people will upgrade their exhaust simply for performance, sound, looks, whatever. And today that's not really my goal. Take a look under the vehicle with me and you'll see exactly what's going on under there. Yeah, your muffler looks like this. It's not long for the world. So we still have the OE exhaust system installed. I don't know if this is the original or if it's been replaced once. It got 20 years and 210,000 miles, but it's the original OE style aluminized steel. This here is a Banks product, generally a fairly good name. Also did ship from Quadratech. I've had generally good luck with them, but you can get your exhaust wherever you want. But the reason I chose this one is that this was the cheapest stainless steel exhaust system I could find. I could have gotten the OE equivalent aluminized steel for this, but this just wasn't that much more, and it'll be long lasting. Now, the aluminized steel would probably last the remaining life of this vehicle. I don't live in the Salt Belt, but this here, hopefully, will do the job. It might be a little bit louder, but the reviews online said it was not obnoxious, so hoping. Now, this is a fairly easy exhaust system to do. You can do it without any specialized tools. You don't need a welder as long as all the OE stuff is still installed, because everything is put together with exhaust clamps. There's 3 locations on the OE that you need to deal with. There's a clamp behind the catalytic converter that holds on the muffler. There's a second clamp that holds it on to the exhaust isolation mount immediately where the tailpipe exits the vehicle. And then there's a conventional exhaust hanger under the back side back there. Those may be terribly rusted out. Now mine are in fairly good condition, but that's because I've replaced them within the past year. But if yours have never come off before, you're probably going to need either a reciprocating saw or a cutoff wheel. Before I do anything else, I want to start out by getting penetrating oil on these so that it has time to get in there and hopefully lube those out a bit. There's the replacement piece with a hanger. Give me that knife, please. Got an additional bung for an oxygen sensor. One thing I don't see on this that I did like on the OE one was a weep hole in order to let out the excess moisture, but it is stainless steel, so hopefully it's not going to be too prone to rusting. Okay, so we've got a few more clamps than before because the exhaust pipe is actually in 2 sections that'll have to be put together as opposed to one continuous section. We've been provided with 3 more clamps, even though I don't think we only need 2 after we get past there. This one here is the same style as what's currently under the vehicle with the double hanger clamp. So we'll see where these fit. Oh, and these are 2 1/4 though. I think I have slightly larger piping here, so I may end up requiring these because I believe the OE on there now is 2 1/8. And these 2 pieces are going to clamp together like that, more or less, because then that goes in the exhaust hanger coming around over the rear wheel, something like that away. Looks to be all mandrel bent though. There's no kinks in any of the turns, so that's pretty nice. So that plus the clamps and a couple fancy little badges is what $330 looks like. Hope it works. Okay, removing the right rear wheel and propping the back up on a jack stand is not required, but it will give you better access and probably make your life a little easier if you have that option. My particular lug nuts are OE and take a 19mm to remove. If you're still using yours and the chrome caps have broken off with age and rust, then it's probably an 18. When possible with lug nuts, work in a crosswise pattern like I was doing there in order to even out the stress on the wheel. Not as big of a deal with steel wheels, but definitely more so with alloys. Now normally when you move your tire, it's a good idea to put it under your sill rail in case the vehicle drops, but that's going to get right in the way of my work area. So I'm going to maintain redundancy by having a jack stand and the jack lightly tensioned under the differential. The weight is all safely supported on the jack stand, so now I bring the jack up slightly, put just a little bit of tension so that if the jack stand drops, the weight doesn't crash onto the jack and possibly blow out a seal. It'll just kind of settle onto it. Okay, I don't know what size your bolts might be, but the ones that I have here are a 14mm. Oh. Okay. They're actually not seized so bad. Okay, that one's still new enough, it's actually not in very bad shape. It could be reused if necessary. Okay, these here can cause a little bit of trouble because they have this nodule on the one side that has to be forced through. And there is a custom exhaust tool for doing these, but if you have to do it in the garage with just channel locks or whatever, it's recommended to lube this connection up a bit using something that's not too oily like WD-40, because if you use like the penetrating oil and leave it in there, it might swell the rubber or whatever. WD-40 doesn't contain a lot of heavy oil. Most of what's in there just evaporates very quickly. Okay, so let's just try the really big channel locks first here and see what happens. Okay, it's working. I think we force it in. Okay, so next I'm going to use this bolt from the parts drawer and use it as a pin to try and finish forcing that out. So let's see how that goes. There we go. Didn't even wreck the bolt. I can put it back in the parts drawer. Okay, this is now the third piece I need to remove in order to disconnect the exhaust. I'm expecting two things to happen. One is this will drop, so I need to be planning on that occurring. It shouldn't be too terribly heavy, but it will stop on the axle if nothing else, but I don't want to bang around up there because it'll also hang up on the emergency brake cable. Next thing, after this one's out, I should be able to slide the entire assembly forward from the muffler, loosen that end, and then push it back that way to get it out. Again, we're back to the 14 millimeter. Looks like the penetrating oil did its job. Also, this one is the newest of the ones I replaced, so it's not surprising that it's not as rusty. Yep, see it dropping? Okay, and that looks like it's just going to sit right there without causing too many problems, so we're good. And then in case you didn't observe what this is actually doing, this hanger here just supports the exhaust like that with a U-clamp. Here's where it gets fidgety. I need to walk this loose, and it might be rusted on there pretty tight, so this could take a hammer, I think. But I think I'd prefer not to. Let's try taking a screwdriver and just tapping it in there a few places to see if that breaks it up. And actually, I could put more penetrating oil in there too, which would definitely help. Remember, if you want a cheap basin, you can throw away. The bottom of a milk carton or water jug works great. It's worth pointing out, of course, that the exhaust is no longer hot. If it were, this could be a bad idea. But then so would touching it like I've been doing. Okay, well that's still soaking in. I'm going to take a carpenter's scratch awl and a hammer. And yeah, I feel that loosening up, so something's happening. Or I'm just wrecking the scratch awl. Might also need to try torching that. Heat this side, not that side, and see if it loosens it a bit. At this point, one thing we could just do is get a cutoff wheel or a saw and go through over here. The reason I'm trying not to do that yet is because I'm not 100% sure if this is going to fit on without some modifications to the pipe. So I might have to take it to an exhaust shop. But I'm going to keep trying this way, and I think what I'll do next is just apply a torch there. Of course, whenever you're getting ready to do any torch work, make sure you have a fire extinguisher handy. And also, make sure your fire extinguisher is charged. Okay, new tool, more PPE. Long story short here, we ended up winding a ratchet strap around the rear side of the catalytic converter and tensioning that back toward the transmission cross member to avoid undue stress on the header back at the engine. We then used a couple more ratchet straps to pull the muffler back to the tow hitch assembly. But all this effort to avoid buzzing through it like a cat thief was for nothing, because it turned out the Banks replacement kit is too long to fit in the OE position, at least on our vehicle, without modifying the outlet pipe from the converter. There's a reason the new muffler provides that oxygen sensor bung, as we will discover shortly. Okay, next step. Let's find out if we're going to need a step-down adapter, because it's looking to me like we might. Will that actually? Well, no, actually. That goes on. But I also need to go take a look at the clamp, figure out which one goes where. And I should probably read the instructions for that. So one of those clamps might be extra. They're showing the GM style double clamp going here after the catalytic converter when installing this kit on this vehicle. And then 2 of the more conventional clamps back there. So double check to make sure that spare oxygen sensor bung is in fact on tight. I see a copper washer under there, which is a good sign. I can never remember what size these are. 3/4 will do it. Put just a very small amount of anti-seize on that before locking it up. Hopefully that's as tight as it'll ever need to be. Just in case you've ever been curious, oh! That was a little noisy. And that's also about what your vehicle will sound like if someone steals your catalytic converter. Slightly louder because the catalytic converter does slow down the exhaust gases a little bit. But yeah, definitely not pleasant. Needs to be about level, which it is. That's good. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get the clamp on here, but I'm not gonna tighten it down because I need to fit the other 2 pipes to make sure everything lines up before I secure everything. Got a piece, which if all goes well, it's supposed to come over and go through here. It was right about here we realized that something wasn't lining up. The gooseneck section over the axle was pushing backward and the muffler wasn't centered under the OE heat shield assembly. It looked like everything was offset by about 2 inches. After some careful thought, we finally admitted that to finish this installation correctly, modifications at the converter exit pipe were required. Guess I'll find out if my heated oxygen sensor comes out cleanly. I don't think I have my offset wrench, so if I can't turn it out cleanly, then I might have to give up on that and just cut the pipe back here. Probably just as well. Looking at where I was on there, I think I was still on top of damaged pipe, so Off camera, I was able to break the torque on this. Doesn't mean it's happy about coming out, but it's not fighting too badly. And that's because I changed the sensor within the past year. Went through all the heartache of having to break the old one out before. And then this one was installed with a bit of anti-seize, so here's the value of doing that. Okay. Looks like that washer's captive on there, so I can't really reuse the new copper one I got, but whatever. That was disturbingly easy. Yeah, it's exactly what it's meant to do. Okay, that's not really an approved use of a cutoff wheel, but I don't have an angle grinder handy, so it did the trick. That's pretty much it right there. Here's this pipe. It's on here. Perfectly lines up. I should be able to go ahead and hang that. Oh man. Still had a lot of WD-40 in there, so that was pretty easy. So now I need the second clamp set up there. Not thrilled about this single brace plate because that's what it was actually on here, the OE application. And while it does cut really nicely into the pipe, what it doesn't do is have a lot of structural rigidity, and one of these actually rusted all the way through. But first you don't succeed, more copper anti-seize. One more piece to go here. Still not sure how I feel about these stupid stickers. I mean, I know they'll probably just melt off on the way, but okay. This particular clamp was way more trouble than it was worth, mostly because it didn't slack out far enough. Several minutes of tweaking were required to get it fitted properly. That clamp goes there, fits on that pipe there, and this ties onto the OE right there. Let's go ahead and tighten these little guys up. Starting to warp the plate, so I don't think that's going to change much. Because now the next step is to actually tighten up the muffler. You make sure the muffler's pretty much level. Make sure it's as far onto this pipe as it can go. And then you center that probably there or so. This is the one where I'm most likely to get a leak because there's back pressure between this two connections. So let's just make sure we're good and tight. One more to do back here. Not as much back pressure between here and out there, so I'm not as worried about these two. Only thing to watch out for to make sure you've done these right is there should be about an equal amount of thread coming out of each of these. It's just like doing a U-bolt on an axle that way. Just need to do the oxygen sensor and then we're ready to test fire. This is definitely a proper application for a little anti-seize. And again, just in case we're not getting the point across, we're not trying to frost the cake. But we definitely want to in all of the threads. The other thing to consider, since I did not disconnect up here, is that I'm going to be making a whole bunch of turns to the right. So let's make a whole bunch of turns to the left, wind up the cord a little bit. And there we go. Get one last check. Okay, not coming out. Make sure these wires are clear of both the drive shaft and the plate here. You don't want them vibrating against anything else. Last step then is to go ahead and try firing it up, see if we've got any exhaust leaks, and hopefully it's about ready to go. Okay, first start. Let's see how it sounds. A little noisier, not terrible. I can definitely feel there's still just a little bit of an exhaust leak between the catalytic converter and the muffler, so I'm gonna have to try and adjust my clamp. Oh, with everything else done, that just leaves the tire to be reinstalled. Generally, you shouldn't lubricate lug studs when you apply bolts or you'll actually over torque them, but a little WD-40 is sometimes nice, just to make sure you're not trapping any water in the threads and getting rust. Finger thread first before continuing so that you don't accidentally cross thread, because the impact can simply drive a cross threaded nut straight on, and then you'll hit it light for a while. This is a fairly low strength electric impact, so it's not actually capable of over torquing lug nuts that I've found. But obviously with an air gun or a high strength electric, you don't want to do what I just did. And done. Well everyone, that was another episode of Workshop Quick Takes. Thanks for joining me again on my YouTube channel. Now you might be wondering how that system is holding up, and it's been about 1.5 years since we put it on. And again, remember, this was OE grade stainless steel. This is not show quality chrome. And unless you're gonna go out there with a couple ounces of mag polish every month, it will take surface staining and some corrosion. That's expected. But the idea is it's not gonna rust through and pit like it would if it was just aluminized steel. Now, again, we also live in Colorado, so it's not progressed as far as it would as if you lived in, say, the Salt Belt. But going outside real quick, let's just see what it is doing. Okay, you can see on the pipe itself, there's a lot of surface staining and corrosion. Coming back over here to the muffler, not quite as much yet, but it is forming, and my suspicion is that's because it's just not as hot. The exhaust largely goes through the middle of the muffler, and then the side is all baffle area, but in time, it will get there, and that's fine. So there you go. And as noted, a little bit louder than OE, but not terrible. the whole vehicle is really noisy anyway. What's one more little thing? And again, we would love to have a welder, but we don't. So this was a way to change out the exhaust without having one. Hopefully that gives you some ideas on how you can upgrade your vehicle. Thanks for joining us again today. We'll see you again next time, whenever that is. Has anyone seen my phone?